ESPN's Jamal Collier released an article exposing just how bad AK was for the Chicago Bulls organization. We're going to talk about that, break that down, because it's going to make a lot of us ticked off, but also give us a sigh of relief that somebody else is in the building now. And then in today's episode, we're going to talk about the Chicago Bulls adding 3 new coaches to the coaching staff. But before we talk about it and break it all down, you already know you gotta hear the music first.
Cognac, gang.
Shy Bulls podcast with the Cognac Boys. I'm Cognac Boy Bobby, and I'm holding it down for today's daily episode. So if you're tuned in, like what you're listening to today, go ahead and support the channel the easiest way possible by simply hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. We just ask for no freeloaders. It's real quick. It's boo boo, and then you already joining the Shy Bulls podcast family. But hey, let's get into this content. Hey, man, let's get into it. So ESPN Jamal Collier released an article on where he mentions that he interviewed more than 20 sources, current and former employees, and others with intimate knowledge of the team's operation. Collectively, they described the franchise as riddled with top to bottom poor decision-making, misguided loyalties, and an insular culture that exacerbated both. It's a hell of a way to start off an article, isn't it, ladies and gentlemen? But we have a number of examples that I'm going to break down, and I just ask all of you all to just bear with me with going on and through these things and really just providing insight to some of the stuff that we already knew, but now are giving more details from people that are currently with the team, no longer with the team, or that was really, really close with the team. So this whole thing kicked off at the start of Artūras Karnišovas' tenure with the Chicago Bulls when he first was enamored with Patrick Williams, according to the reports. He said multiple people, according to ESPN Jamal Collier, according to multiple people, the scouting department and the analytics departments pushed for the Chicago Bulls to draft Tyrese Halliburton, who a lot of us was like, man, why y'all go and draft Buddy off Florida State anyway? You know what I'm saying? So that's not really that surprising. But they said they liked Patrick Williams, but implored Karnišovas and Mark Eversley to look past Halliburton's funky jump shot and consider how often the ball actually went in. And guess what? AK and Mark Eversley disregarded the staffers. And that was not the only examples. Collier went on to explain that though AK and Mark Eversley will have or listen to the input of the others from multiple departments, they still went on to hold smaller meetings amongst some of the ones that are closely with them. And that had the staffers that were a part of Artūras, the organization, believing that those in those smaller meetings, those were the space where the decisions were actually being made. So they felt like they were pretty much X'd out of all the decision-making processes. And a lot of the times we're even hearing from multiple people that a lot of the times they were never told what decisions will be made. Sometimes these people found out what was happening within their own organization via notification from ESPN. Crazy work. Crazy work. They didn't believe in Artūras, is what it sounds like to me. And it came down to a lot of financial decisions. We're talking about the Nikola Vucevic trade. Not a lot of people was on board with that. But when it came down to Nikola Vucevic, on re-signing him, a lot of people, they were scratching their head on that decision. And then the Patrick Williams decision. Several staffers said they were blindsided by the terms of Patrick Williams' contract. Crazy work. Crazy work. So AK is everything that we know. Trash. Like, seriously. Now, I know there are some people, when we talk about this, we always point to the organization and we blame the Reinsdorfs. It was a couple years ago, and I want to just bring this up. It was a couple years ago to where we was breaking this down and trying to figure out Artūras Karnišovas, and C-Dub was like, bro, I honestly don't feel like the Reinsdorf be in the way. He felt like, and I'm just paraphrasing for he felt like that the Reinsdorfs, they hire their guys and let their guys do what they supposed to be doing. They allowed the basketball guys to do basketball stuff. And there was some pushback from, some of our listeners like, no, it's absolutely on them. They're meddling. And come to find out, according to this article, C-Dub was right. According to some members or some sources a part of this article, others within the organization vehemently disagree with the notion that ownership prevented the Bulls from rebuilding. The reality is, and I'm quoting this here, the reality is the best thing about working for the Reinsdorf is that they are going to hire somebody and they're going to let that person do the job. And they also mentioned they believe, these sources, they believe that if AK would have mapped out a plan to start a rebuild, the Reinsdorf would have listened. Now it makes total sense. Now it makes total sense. And I believe that all this is good for everybody. Not name them fuckers. It's good for us as Bulls Nations. We don't necessarily have to agree on every single decision that is being made by here Bryson Graham. But what we all can agree on, and I'm pretty sure you all will agree, and if you don't, drop it in the comment box. Let's see why. If you don't agree, the best thing to have is an owner that's not a meddling owner. But there's a flip side to that. You gotta check in. If we remember correctly, at the end of the season, when we heard from Michael Reinsdorf, he said he did not check in as often as he should have. That's where shit got sticky. That's where things went south. Because though you allow basketball guys to do their job, you're still the quote-unquote governor of the Chicago Bulls. You have been given full range since 2020. You got to check in, especially when your organization was mediocre. Mediocre, ladies and gentlemen. And we deserve much better than that. But I'm so happy that AK is out of this building, because how on God's green earth do you have all this personnel within all these departments and don't take on some of the opinions that they have, and then you go into a separate meeting and do a complete 180? What are we doing? And according to sources right now that are a part of the Chicago Bulls team, who has been around for a while, they believe Bryson Graham is very, very different. It's a very, very different vibe. That is the quote. And he said, or they said, the Chicago Bulls now, they're meeting as a group, and they are meeting just beyond 4 people. And I say that to say this. That's a breath of fresh air to read. Now, we'll go out there and listen to you all, because I know there's going to be some people that brings up the Cam Carter and the Dalen Swain thing. I just know somebody is going to do it. Now, I say that it's a breath of fresh air, but that doesn't mean everything is going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that we can't critique Bryson Graham on some of his decision-making. But what we can give credit for is him actually trying to build a culture to where it is inclusive to good decision makers. That matters, because AK was ass in a bag. Let's call a spade a spade. Let's keep it a buck. I can't name one negotiation that benefited the Chicago Bulls for the future. Can we go out there and say the Isaac Okoro trade for Lonzo Ball was good? Yes, we can say that, because Lonzo's currently not in the league. But I'm talking about something that we could have utilized years down the road. Draft assets, a developing player that makes a lot of sense. You know what I'm saying? And you see continual growth. AK didn't leave us with that. Maybe if you want to give him credit for drafting Montes Buzelis, maybe. But we talking about negotiations here. Can you be methodical with this shit? Can you get surgical with this? And I'm glad that this report is exposing how bad AK was, because now we don't have to speculate. We're hearing from the sources that are currently in the building or was in the building or close to the situation. And now that Bryson Graham is in place, we should feel a little bit better. Does not mean that we're going to agree with all his decisions. Doesn't mean that we have to go out there and not hold him to the fire and criticize him for his decisions. But at least right now, at this very moment, before, and I believe it's kind of prematurely, before we get through the season, before we see another off season, this is a good start. This is a good start. And shout out to Bryson Graham for that. Because AK, at the end of the day, we knew that he had to go. And Michael Reinsdorf heard the chatter, heard the noise. And that was good on his part. Doesn't mean he did it at the right time, but he heard us and went and got the right guy. For anybody that's coming here talking crazy about Bryson Graham, look at the resume. He earned this. Can he do a good job? It's still to be determined. Some things are good so far, but he still has ways to go. And we'll see where we end up down the road. This is not just a one-year thing. We need to go out there and allow him a grace period to where we be like, all right, bro, it's been 3 years. What are we doing? We gave AK a lot of time. And a lot of time, we held on to the fact that at one point, the Chicago Bulls was the number 1 seed. We held on that for a while. So allow Bryson Graham his grace period to try to right the ship and do the right thing. But I'm so glad that this article has came out and confirmed a lot of the things that I was thinking. How stupid he was. I'm sorry. I got to call him stupid. How stupid he was. Thank God he's no longer in Chicago. Thank God. Trying to justify the Patrick Williams stuff. Trying to justify the Vucevic stuff. Refusing to get rid of Andre Drummond. Not making the proper moves on Alex Caruso. Should I continue? So I appreciate this damn article coming from Jamal Collier, because it confirms everything we knew. Artūras Karnišovas was bad for Chicago, and thank God he's no longer in the building because he's stupid. Stupid. But hey, before we get up out of here, we got an update regarding the Chicago Bulls organization. Now, according to Michael Scotto from Hoops Hype, the Chicago Bulls will be hiring 3 new guys on to the coaching. Tiago Splitter will be bringing on 3 new guys to add on to their coaching staff. Those guys are Rex Kalaman, Jonah Herskew, excuse me if I'm butchering these names, and Blake Ahern. Rex Kalaman was an assistant coach for 8 teams: the Milwaukee Bucks, Detroit Pistons, OKC, Toronto Raptors, Sacramento Kings, Los Angeles Clippers, Denver Nuggets, and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Hey, seems like a pretty good record to me. He also won an NBA championship with the Milwaukee Bucks in 2024. So that is a good guy to bring on the staff, a guy that has experience with some championship pedigree. Now, Jonah Herskew was a head coach of the Rip City Remix down in Portland, the NBA G League team. You know what I'm saying? So, and Herskew was an assistant for the Blazers and the Kings. So shout out to him for that. Then Blake Ahern was an assistant coach for the Memphis Grizzlies and head coach of the Austin Spurs of the NBA G League. In 2018, the Spurs won the NBA G League title. Take it for what you will. I'm just saying. But I do like the additions that are coming on to the Chicago Bulls. I think this means that we're going to continue to have an emphasis on bringing in new faces. And I know that Tiago Splitter talked about some of the guys that's already been here, mixing it with some guys that he's familiar with, and everybody having a collaborative effort to bring the Chicago Bulls back to relevancy. And that's exactly what we need. It's not always about who you're familiar with. Sometimes it's about hearing new ideas that can help you develop as the head coach, and having guys that you can trust, and having guys with some familiarity with the players on the team already. So I think that makes a lot of sense. I like the 3 additions to the team. I think that Wes Unseld Jr. will be strictly pinned down to player development. And then we had Coach Default yesterday win the Summer League game. And I think that he did some things pretty damn well. And I like how he had that starting lineup to start the game. I think that was smart. Obviously, you want to see more out of some players. I'm not going to get on them on this episode, but y'all know the point. So I think that the Chicago Bulls are moving in the right direction. Obviously, everything is not going to be a straight line. There's going to be some bumps. There's going to be some hills. There's going to be some valleys. We'll see how the Chicago Bulls continue to move. But hey, that is it for me today, y'all. I appreciate y'all for tuning in to another episode. Before you get up out of here, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell as well, man. We appreciate y'all. Make sure you always see red. Y'all already know. I'm going to catch y'all on the next one for sure. Peace.
Cognac. Gang.